There is a lot at stake this year. If this country re-elects Donald Trump, then the world will be in shock. So much in shock that Great Britain has promised to retaliate by sending back Piers Morgan. A big risk of a Trump re-election is that the initiatives in the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 might come into effect. If you haven't read Project 2025, then I can sum it up like this. It's so restrictive on women that the Taliban is threatening to sue for copyright infringement. Project 2025 is so restrictive on women's rights, it makes Henry VIII look progressive. Project 2025 will threaten to roll back environmental protections, which will suit a state like Florida just fine, as their plan to save manatees and other wildlife is to simply let sea levels rise and give them more room to swim. But you wouldn't know that these issues were at stake if you listened to the mainstream media. So to counter that, on this show, I feel as though I am qualified to judge the psychology of the campaigns and the media in this cycle, since with Abby Mello not only retiring from this podcast, but also from comedy, I am the closest thing the Baltimore, D.C. comedy community has to being a doctor. And with that terrifying note, it's time to bring on our guest. Please join me in welcoming to the show retired Army Major, former state senator, former congressional candidate, former presidential candidate, and podcast host, Richard Ojeda.
Woohoo! Thank you, Tom. Thanks, guys.
Richard, welcome to the show. I've actually been wanting to get you on for quite a bit. I'm a fan of yours. I listen to Ojeda live quite frequently. And I wanted to get you on because you have a very interesting history in terms of especially Donald Trump running for office. You initially supported him, I heard in interviews you'd given him, and now why don't you tell us about that? Tell us about that evolution.
Well, in the beginning, Donald Trump came down to West Virginia. He spoke about West Virginia. He talked about helping the coal industry. And the truth is that, there were a lot of things that he was saying that I did not like. But, it had been since JFK that somebody actually acted like they were going to do something for the people of Southern West Virginia. And when you live in those areas and you grow up in those areas, you see what real poverty is. And finally, somebody is saying that they're going to do something about, the people there. And the majority of my family are coal miners. So I held my nose and I said, you know what, I'm going to support him because he is talking about doing things for the coal miners. And he didn't. When he won, he didn't do anything for the coal miners. We lost more coal miners under him than we have under anybody else. And, I realized that it was just a lie. And now we realize that whenever it comes out of Donald Trump's mouth, yeah, it's a lie. That's what he does. That's the one thing that he is, he's consistent with, is Donald Trump is going to lie to you. And that's exactly what he did. And that's why I have absolutely done everything in my power to drag him through the daggone mud as much as I can, whenever I can. And I will continue doing that. I'm hoping that not only does he get beat badly, I want to see accountability for this guy because, as a person, I spent 24 years in the military. What recently happened in Arlington, I mean, let me tell you something. This guy does not know how to follow any rules at all. And when you live an entire life where you get no accountability, you think you can do what you want. I want Donald Trump to get the accountability that he deserves.
I noticed that a lot, right? Because traditionally in election cycles past, Republicans have had the support of the military and their families and that community. My dad's the classic example. He was Mr. Republican, supported Nixon his first time voting all the way up through Romney, found himself not being able to support Trump in 2016. In fact, I think he was a John Kasich voter during the primary. I think he wrote someone in. And this past election cycle, he found himself being amused by all of the pro-Biden stuff coming out on social media and talking about that. And is this my dad? What's happening? Is this old age creeping in, or is this what is this? So I noticed that there's a lot of that going on, especially with especially with some military families, which it's still a shock to me in a way, for lack of a better term.
Well, when it comes to the military, Donald Trump doesn't respect us, and I'm starting to, hope that people are really starting to wake up, especially people in the military. when you talk about the military values, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage, that's what the military is about. And Donald Trump is none of those things, and what happened at Arlington. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's a place that is off limits for political, garbage. And that's exactly what they did. They tried to make it political. And, personally, I think first and foremost, one of the things that angered me the most is watching him place a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. The moment that he was a adjudicated rapist and a 34 count felon, he should have been placed on a list of never being invited to Arlington. And now what I believe needs to happen, and I think that they are pushing legislation to talk about saying that he will never be allowed to be buried at Arlington. And that absolutely needs to take place. It needs to happen. He needs to be denied that right, that honor, because he doesn't deserve it. I mean, at the end of the day, he does nothing but lie. He spews garbage. He has no respect for women. He is not running because he wants to help the poor coal miners. He's not running because he wants to bring jobs back from overseas. He's not running so he can help the elderly be able to grow old in dignity. He's running to avoid accountability. He's running to not go to jail. That's the only reason why this guy is even in this. The reason why he threw his hat in the ring in the beginning was because he was hoping that would scare anybody to even bring lawsuits against him, because they would go, well, it's going to look like we're just trying to pick on him for political reasons. That's why he threw his hat in the ring almost immediately after the election was over. So, I am hoping that we're going to see accountability with this guy, and I'm hoping that it sends a message. I'm hoping that some of these people out here will wake up, stop, you want to sit here, you want to tell me that you're religious, but you support Donald Trump? I'm sorry, I don't buy it.
Yeah, with the Arlington thing especially, because my uncle's buried at Arlington. Like he served in Vietnam, died at a very young age, and so I know that if my and he's still when he passed away, my grandparents are still around. So I just remember that being a very tough time. I was only 6 when it happened, so it didn't really fully register with me. But I think the significance of that really kind of hit. I noticed with Trump's stunt there, because I'm thinking to myself, if my grandparents were still alive now, like they would be absolutely livid at what was going on. And on top of that, like my mother doesn't support Trump, but like her two remaining siblings, they still stick up for him. They still, apologize for him. And it's first off, the fact that he's sort of bringing in like fascism and praising people who wave swastika flags, which is my grandparents' generation fought against those guys. I can't imagine what my grandparents would think to watch, their kids supporting someone who believes that bullshit.
Yeah, there's not good people on both sides. When Donald Trump says that kind of garbage. Let me tell you something. I have 13 names on my back of brothers that did not get to come home. Their hopes and dreams bled out on a battlefield. They didn't get to go home and marry their sweetheart and raise children. They lost everything in combat. And there are some of them that are buried at Arlington right now. And it's just unacceptable. It's unacceptable that this guy does that. It's unacceptable that this guy is blaming President Biden for the 13 dead that happened in Afghanistan, when Donald Trump is the one that came up with that plan and even bragged that Joe Biden could not stop it. The only thing that Joe Biden was able to do was Joe Biden was able to extend the stay there for 30 days. And he said, look, you can either give us 30 more days to get out of this country, or we could just keep fighting. And the Taliban said, okay, we'll give you the 30 days. We had no idea that there was going to be an ISIS guy with a suicide vest that was going to rush to the front gate and commit suicide, killing 13 Americans. But once again, they want to sit and they want to blame Joe Biden for this. Who's the president of Afghanistan? He's a guy that used to be in prison that Donald Trump freed, with 4,999 other people that went right back to the battlefield. I'm sick and tired of watching these people throw these things at people like President Biden. Goodness gracious, Donald Trump is the reason for all of this. He does not respect veterans. He didn't want to go to visit World War I graves because he was scared it was going to mess up his hair. He asked General Kelly, what's in it for them? General Kelly lost his son in Iraq. You know, General Mattis is one of the most brilliant generals that's ever walked the earth. And once again, Donald Trump says he's under or overrated and all this. You know, if you're in the military, you know, I believe in our leaders. And to sit and watch Donald Trump throw stones at them, call them weak, it's absolutely sickening. If you stand up to Donald Trump is going to try to drag your character through the mud. Believe it or not, he actually come to West Virginia and called me a stone cold crazy wacko when I was running against Carol Miller, who's running for her 4th term, by the way, and she has never done one single thing for West Virginia. She hasn't brought jobs back. Now, she's tried to take credit for the infrastructure that she voted against. But once again, I mean, you know, Donald Trump come to West Virginia, and literally the moment that he said I was a stone cold crazy wacko, my numbers tanked. I was winning. It was an R plus 54, and I was winning. And you know what? Let me tell you something. I get things done. When I was a senator in West Virginia, in my first 60 days, I made West Virginia the 29th state for medical cannabis. And everybody told me, don't you dare try that. But I got it done. I got it done. I got correctional officers 2 pay raises. The teacher strike that happened in 2018 that spread across the country started because of my speech that I gave on the Senate floor. I get things done, and it's really, really hard when you work so hard and you watch good people getting kicked to the curb because of what? Because of lies, because of people. Donald Trump did not make America great again. Donald Trump made America hate again. And that's what these people are about now. And it's absolutely sickening. And we've got to see this accountability. I want to see Donald Trump. I want to see him spend the rest of his life in prison because that's where he deserves. And I don't think it'll take long. I don't think because once again, when a person who has lived their entire life and never felt accountability, when you finally get accountability, it feels like torture. And I hope he lives long and feels torture every single minute of every single day.
Richard, holy crap. You just like literally said everything. And I love the
us this
behind
week.
it.
Let me also say one thing that you guys may not know this. When I won my Senate seat, I won it from the emergency room in Charleston Area Medical Center. Because 2 days before I won, I took a pipe to the back of the head and they broke 8 bones in my face with brass knuckles. And I won. I still won. They knew that if I didn't die on that creek bank, I'd be the next senator. And I won, and I was the next senator.
Well, Richard, I just want to sort of commend the change in you. And it gives me hope. I will say this because as somebody who knows the background of Donald Trump, from years gone by, I could never have supported him like that. But so I would be a never Trumper, right? But somebody like you who, for whatever the reason, right, you shared earlier why from the coal mining background, what he said he was going to do for West Virginia, you believed him. And for however you did or whatever you did, but you saw the light. And I guess what happens is it gives me hope, a small piece anyway, that other people like you might eventually see the light, right? Because you thought he was going to do something where I would say that the rest of us on this show right now, we were probably always a never Trumper, right? So the change came from you, not necessarily from us.
Well, let me tell you, it's like when you watch people that literally have nothing. I'm going to tell you, I had to actually embarrass Joe Manchin, and I convinced him to say he would do something in front of a whole crowd of people, which was provide a food bank in McDowell County, West Virginia, with a forklift, because their forklift that was 100 years old died, and they couldn't get the food to the people because they couldn't even get out of the trucks.
Yeah.
And when you realize you see people that just get lied to and they get their hopes built up, all these people, Nick Rahal was a daggone congressman for Southern West Virginia for 38 years. And he might have done some good things the first 5, 6 years, but the rest of his time, he didn't do nothing for those people. He showed up right before the election. He wrote 3 checks to the 3 biggest crooks in the county, and they promised him Logan County every single time, and they did it in every county. You know, you get sick and tired of watching people fall for this stuff. And the reason why they fall for it is because they have literally almost no hope whatsoever. So if somebody offers them something, to them, they're like, oh my God, maybe it could be true. And it's always so sad when it never happens. You know, Carol Miller is running for her 4th term. She's done nothing for those people. The only thing she does is she goes on the TV and she says, I'll do whatever Donald Trump wants. And they vote for her. I mean, I left West Virginia. I live in North Carolina now because I just got sick and tired of being in a state where literally I'm almost ready to fist fight every time I walk out my front door. So it's hard. And when you see people that you love that fall for this garbage, when you see people that you love get nothing for their, you know, support of these jackaloons, it's absolutely a shame.
Yeah, it's classic cult behavior. It's very hard. If you know people who are in other kinds of cults, it's very difficult for them to see. It's almost like addiction, right? You're like, I can see that you could have a better life, but I need you to see that you could.
People are voting for people not because they're doing anything. They're voting because they say, I'm a Trumper. Let me tell you something. When I was a senator in West Virginia, we had a guy that got in trouble with prostitutes and drugs. He was a doctor. He got in trouble. Guess what? Nothing happened. He got reelected. He just got found out, got busted again because he exposed himself to a couple of women in a daggone, you know, social setting. The guy's a pervert. Finally. I mean, but goodness gracious, this guy wins because why? I'll do whatever Donald Trump wants. And that's how it gets. And when you see people that do that support people like that, you finally make the decision that you're better off just leaving for someplace else. And I love being down here. I spent 16 years at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, so I'm close to Fort Liberty now, and I love it here.
Great.
And